Welcome and thank you for being here today. I want to welcome all the family and students, the faculty and staff, as well as the VFW, and all of our support back there at the tables. I didn't come back and say hi to everybody, but we'll do it again later. Thank you for taking the time to attend. We're pleased to have you present for our Veterans Day event. My name is James J. Rubio I. I'm an Army veteran, current student, and the chapter president of the Lone Star College-Kingwood Student Veterans Association. The Atascocita High School Marines, JROTC, will present the colors and the national anthem will be sung by the young man.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in there, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Carry colors. Ready, cut. Right, turn. March. Left, 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 right. Forward. March. Color guard. Halt. Dismiss.
Please remain standing. Lavelle Maxey is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you for joining us today to honor veterans of the United States Armed Forces. I am one of the staff advisors for the Student Veterans Association and academic advisor for the Veterans Resource Center, which is located upstairs here at Lone Star College-Kingwood. We wish to extend a special thanks to the president of Lone Star College-Kingwood, Dr. Melissa Gonzalez, and interim vice president of student success, Mr. Ernesto Valenzuela, for their continued encouragement and support to our students and our organization. Today, we wish to educate the community on the veteran experience. The relationships we make today and year-round will help us find and provide volunteers with critical roles in the development of confidence, dissemination of vital resources, and to facilitate the success of our veterans on campus. We are here to promote a culture of care. All veteran transitions vary by the individual. No single experience is ever the same. This is why a support network is integral for veteran success. We must remove the stigma that asking for help is a sign of weakness. Through conversations like the ones we will have today, we aim to develop comprehensive allies in supporting veteran transition, first into civilian life, and then into the even more distinct academic environment. Our keynote speaker this morning will be Navy veteran Leonard Lynce, Jr., and he is a very dear friend of ours. He has gone on to great success in his academics. He is pursuing his law degree now, and we hope the best for him. He is a second-year law student, here we go, at South Texas College of Law, Houston, and an MBA candidate at Louisiana State University. Leonard will graduate from LSU this December with his master's in business administration with a concentration on data analytics. At South Texas, he is representative for the Student Bar Association, as well as the education chair for the Veterans Law Student Association. As the education chair, he organizes and leads study sessions for first-year students in courses such as civil procedure, contracts, and torts. Leonard also competes as an advocate on the mock trial, moot court, and the alternative dispute resolution teams at South Texas. In his capacity as an advocate, he is a two-time National Mock Trial finalist, as well as a Christopher Breen Memorial Award winner. Professionally, Leonard has completed internships with the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office and the Lone Star College Office of General Counsel. Please welcome Mr. Leonard Lynce.
Good morning, everyone. Can always count on the Air Force to let us down, right? All right. I'd like to thank you for inviting me. I'd like to extend a thank you to Mr. Espinoza and Mr. Sublett for inviting me here today. I was surprised when I got the call. When SB asked me, it was kind of surreal. I remember, it feels like it was yesterday, a few years ago, watching Dan do the same thing, and I was like, I'll never do that. It's not me. When he reached out, my wife, I talked to her, and I was like, why is he asking me to do this? This is for people who've gone on to do great things or done something or are just old, and I'm not old. So my wife and my kids, who are like me, they said, put a hand on my shoulder and talked to me and said, well, you are old. You have 2 kids who are in college at Lone Star, so that puts you on the pedestal of being old. So then I reached out to SB and I guess accepted this beautiful honor. So thank you again. Then the next step was, well, what do I talk about? I have no idea what to talk about. I'm not a professional right now, and I'm still in school. And SB, as we've always done, we talked, and he said, dude, you're doing a lot. You've accomplished a lot since you've been here. SB and Dan and my wife, knowing me, know I'm not very good about talking about myself. That's one of my downfalls. I've heard that in interviews. You're not good at talking about yourself, so I'm going to try it here today. So excuse me as I move around. I'm not comfortable standing in one spot. As Dan said, right now I am at South Texas College of Law, Houston, where I am a 2L student, where I do participate with the Veterans Law Society, the Black Lawyers Society, as well as the Student Bar Association. And what I like to do is just reach out to everyone who needs help in any capacity as needed. My focus is on helping people. That has always been my goal in life, has been my mission in life. But there was a time where I forgot what my mission was. And that was when I first transitioned out of the Navy. When I transitioned, and I feel like pretty much all veterans can attest to this, that when you get out, you remember that day. I remember July 26, 2010, very vividly, leaving San Diego. And it was, what do I do next? I had no idea. I hadn't finished my college degree yet. I had a young son at the time, and I had no idea what to do next. And that transition, what you hear is that that's the most important time when you first get out, figuring out what to do. But unlike it is today, where you have these beautiful programs that can help you transition and kind of steer you the right way, I didn't have that at that time. So it's kind of figuring out myself with whether it was my family and friends at the time before I met everyone here, or just my family. And that's what I had to lean on. Now, I say I'm not old, but I am an 80s baby, so I was raised to believe that, men aren't supposed to reach out for help. You're not supposed to speak to counselors, not supposed to speak to therapists. You have to suck all that in and just bottle it up. And so that's what I did at first. And it just left me angry. I was angry all the time. I didn't know why I was angry. I knew I did some things in the Navy that I didn't talk about. I did some things prior to the Navy that I didn't talk about. And it was, well, what do I do next? I can't talk to anyone about it. I've been told my whole life that you're not supposed to talk about these things as a man. Even though my mom and my dad told me all the time, that's not true. Open up, express your feelings, tell people how you feel. I didn't think I was supposed to do that. So I didn't at first. So that first year outside of the military, I was just walking in a daze. I had no idea what to do. I wasn't being a good father. I wasn't being a good son. I wasn't being a good boyfriend to my then girlfriend, who's now my wife. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. So I sat down and talked to her. She told me to reach out to somebody, go to the VA. At that time, I was like, the VA is not going to do anything for me. I've never heard of any success stories from the VA. What's going to happen if I go there? They'll just push me down the road. Thankfully for myself, my dad, who spent 30 years in the military, he was transitioning at the same time I was. And we kind of had that to lean on. We were both going through the same thing. Now, him spending 30 years and me spending my time in the military, it wasn't exactly the same, but that transition, I feel for all veterans, is pretty much the same. You're losing that camaraderie with the people you're with, the people you know, the people you've grown with, the people you spend every day going to battle with, or just, sorry, almost cussed there, just talking with. You don't have that anymore, especially for someone like me who was overseas my entire time. Those people that I've grown close to, they weren't there for me, and I wasn't there for them. So the things that I would talk about on a daily basis, things that I felt, I didn't think there was anyone else I could talk to at that time. But again, like I said, in talking to my wife, she allowed me to realize that that just wasn't true, and I could talk to someone. So, as she would always say, she's always right, and she was in this case. I did end up talking to someone and expressing everything I'd gone through. And for me, Veterans Day isn't about, it's hard to really talk about what Veterans Day is in totality, because there's over 15 million veterans in the country itself. There's over 1.5 million veterans in Texas alone, and there's over 300,000 veterans in Houston itself. So for Veterans Day, to me, is just learning about one individual, and this is kind of my story here. So as I said with my wife, she told me to talk to someone, and I ended up reaching out to the VA to figure out what was going on, and I went to therapy. And that's when I was diagnosed with PTSD. At the time, I didn't know what to think. It was a struggle. But as I learned more, as I did more research, as I listened to those who are around me who'd been through similar things, it became more real. And then it was, well, what do I do next? I had, again, no idea what to do. For me, what I've always wanted to do was help people. And at that time, I was making t-shirts, so wasn't really helping people. And I didn't know what the next step was for myself. So my wife, my mom, my best friend, they all sat me down and talked to me and told me, look, this is what you've done your entire life. You've always been about helping people, so find what you can do to help people. Now, my entire life, I wanted to be a lawyer, but at that point, I thought it was too late. I thought it was something that you had to do right out of undergrad. And like I said, I didn't have my degree, so had to chalk that up. What I did in the military, didn't think I could do it outside of the military, so at least not legally. So I said, I can't do that. But then I learned about Lone Star College System, and I enrolled at Lone Star, at University Park initially, before coming over to Kingwood before I graduated. And then from there, I was thankful enough to get other positions where I was a police officer and security officer. And that started the ball rolling for me again on what I wanted to do, which was help people. So from there, I then transitioned to, which is now Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehabilitation Services, which at the time was just DARS. And it was helping people with disabilities, with employment, medical procedures, home modifications, job modifications, kind of similar to what I want to do. And as I was there, I realized this is something I would definitely want to do. This is something I want to pursue. I wasn't specifically helping veterans, but it was something that allowed me to work with veterans in totality across the Houston region. And at that time, it was fulfilling. I enjoyed it, but I reached a ceiling where I felt like I could do more. I could reach more people if I did something else. So that's when I went to Sam Houston to finish my degree in criminal justice and sociology. And from there, my love for math took me to being a math teacher. Now, most people say they hate math. What I've always said is, it's because you didn't have a good teacher. Use math. Thank you. Yes. Math is, to me, is the easiest subject because there's no one way to get a right answer. How you process things is how you process things. How you look at a problem and how you solve that problem isn't going to be the same for every person. So I use that to kind of help people in transition, and it worked. But I still didn't feel like I was reaching as many people as I thought I could. So then I transitioned again. Transitioned to Lone Star, where I was brought on as a veteran advisor, like Dan, like Espy, and that's when I met some remarkable people, like Curry, who we got to talk about all type of things. I won't go into those details, but we had some great conversations, kind of like you guys, I'm sure, have now upstairs. And that allowed me to see and focus on what I wanted to do and how I could continue my transition. And I haven't seen Curry in 3-4 years now. And when I stepped through the door, it felt like we talked every single day since. It was like we never left. I had that same camaraderie that I felt when I was in the military because we built something. And he reminded me of something that I honestly forgot about. That 4 years ago, before I'm at where I'm at now, I told him I was going to do this. I told him I wanted to go to law school. I told him I wanted to get my MBA. I told him I wanted to get my PhD, which I probably won't do. It's a lot of school. Way too much. But if my wife does, I'll do it. But and he reminded me that that's something that I set up for myself. It was a plan I set up for myself. And what I've learned throughout all this time is that's all transitioning is planning. Proper planning, what you put into place. You can't just think about what you want to do. You have to actually write it down. Now, for someone like me who doesn't like to write things down, because that's evidence and it's admissible in court if anyone asks you, I don't like to write things down. So it was always in my mind what I wanted to do. But I was told that you need to write it down so you can put a plan in action so you can see it. So to this day, the things that I want to achieve, I do write it down. I wanted to receive my law degree, and I'm a year away, December 2024, from receiving that. I wouldn't clap yet. I haven't reached that part yet. No. But also, I wanted to receive my MBA just because I wanted to do it. There wasn't a real reason behind it other than my wife was getting a master's, and I wanted to compete with her. So, and I'll be receiving that next month. So, but for me, I say all to say I didn't know, one, what to do when I got out of the military, and I also didn't know what to talk about when I got here. And so I reached out to the people who know me best, my wife, my mom, and my best friend, and I asked them, what are the things about me that stand out? And they all three said the same thing, you're an asshole. So I said, well, I can't say that while I'm there. But they said there's three things. It's my drive, my honesty, and my dependability. When they talked about the drive, my mom brought up a story that I remember differently than her, but I'll tell it like she told me. As a kid, I have an older brother and a younger sister. And when we were younger, we used to always have board games and game nights, something that me and my kids do now. And our game of choice was always Trivial Pursuit. Now, I'm a hard worker, but as far as just intelligence, knowing it off the top of my head, I can't compete with my brother or my sister. So every week I would lose, and I got angrier and angrier every time. So one night when everyone was away, I took all the cards out and I remembered all the answers to every single question on every single card. So the next night, when we actually had the game, before my mom could ask the question, I would answer every time. And my brother was pissed. This was the one thing he could beat me in every single time, and I was winning. And so, again, my mom remembers that differently. I think I just did proper research in figuring out the answers. You know, it's all about how you spin it. But that's the story my mom tells about my drive and my competitiveness. And that has changed some as I've grown. I don't steal the answers and remember them anymore. I just work really hard. And I say that I'm not as intelligent as my brother and my sister, but my kids remind me that intelligence is subjective. You don't have to be intelligent in one thing, in everything. You're intelligent in one thing. You can be brilliant in one thing and not so well in another. You can be brilliant in making money and not so brilliant in running a social media platform. It just depends on where you fall on that spectrum. Now, for me, that's worked out for me, that drive, that competitiveness that pushes me to where I'm at today. And that's worked because, again, which I always harken back to, is my wife. She's achieving her master's in mental health and as to be a counselor. And so I can never not talk about my feelings at home, which is weird, but it is what it is. Yeah. So I said that drive is something that's pushed me to where I am today. The next thing was the honesty. They call me honest. I call myself lazy. And it's, again, how you spin things. For me, if you tell someone a lie, you have to remember what you told them. You have to remember how you told them. You have to remember what the day looked like that day, what you were wearing, the other people you brought in. It's too many moving pieces. And for me, that's too much work. So I just tell the truth. That works out. I don't have to remember anything. I don't remember who I talked about, who I brought in. I don't have to call a friend and like, hey, if my wife calls you, tell her I did this. You know, I just tell the truth. And there's a gift and a curse in that. All three of them told me the same thing, is that if they want to know the truth about something, they'll reach out to me. Like, hey, how do I look in this? Well, I mean, I would change, but, but you can wear what you want. Or, hey, what do you think about this particular thing? You're going to get the truth from me because, as I said, I feel like I'm lazy. But for them, it's something that they can depend on. And it's something that people I've talked to across the spectrum, wherever I've been in life, has something that they commend me for, is that honesty, that you know what you're going to get, whether it helps them, hurts them, what have you. That's something that I'm always going to give them. So that's something that I hold dear to my heart, is just being honest with people, but not in a mean manner. I won't tell you something just to be mean, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So, and the next thing is that dependability. My mom says that the biggest thing that she's seen from me from youth to now is that maturity that I've shown and how I've grown. One thing that she likes to point out is when I was younger, I was a chicken nugget guy. What she means by that is no matter where we went, I was ordering chicken nuggets. When we were in Japan, I was ordering chicken nuggets. When we were in Korea, I was ordering chicken nuggets. And as I've grown, I've kind of have a sophisticated palate now, although not that sophisticated. I don't do chicken nuggets, but I will do a filet mignon. You know? I like a good steak. But that dependability, or that reaching out to people and being available and adaptable is something that has helped me through life. As no matter what the situation is, I'm able to adapt. Now, I might not plan that well. As you can, I'll hold up my notes for this speech. I got about 5 blocks on there. I can promise you I have not touched any of those blocks in this entire speech. But I'm good at adjusting. That's what I do well. That's something I learned in the military, how to adjust. While I was training, people on how to react in different situations, how to use your weapon correctly, how to react to combat situations, that's something you can't plan for. You never know what's going to happen. Anything can happen at a given moment. You have to be able to adjust on the fly. You have to be able to revert to your training. You have to be able to know if you see someone coming from the right, how you can adjust yourself and get under cover to protect yourself and your troop. That's something that I've been able to take from the military and adjust in everyday life. With trial and competitions, what I've seen is while I might have one way, I want to do a direct examination of a witness on the stand, I might hear something that I have to adjust on the fly. I might have to, while I might think this is a strict products liability case, I might have to switch to negligence because they breached their duty. That's something that has been pointed out to me as a strength, but to me, that's just how I see things, which is I try to envision all possible scenarios and situations because that's something that I feel like you have to be aware of. You can't have tunnel vision. You can't just think of the way that you want to see things. You have to see how other people see things. You have to talk to people outside of your cone, your echo chamber. And that's something, again, that I learned in the military, that I've learned throughout life, and that was enhanced here, right across the hall at the VRC, where we're able to talk about different things. You meet with different people who have different views, but you're able to talk and conversate or converse amicably. Now, for me, that transition to being able to do that, from the outside, from what I hear, didn't look like it was hard. But internally, it tore me up. And as some of my veteran friends who can attest to, the perception that people have of you is something that you might not have of yourself. You may look cool, calm, and collected on the outside, and inside your gears are turning. Am I doing this right? Am I taking the right step? Am I saying the right thing in my speech, talking in front of all these people that's recorded? You know, there's a lot of things going through your head. But that perception that people see is you just being yourself, being calm, being cool, being collected, and just talking or reacting to whatever comes up. And that's something that, as time has gone on, I've grown more comfortable with, more comfortable being myself. But the people who know me say this is something that I've always had, and that's something they admire about myself, that admire about me, is that I've always been comfortable in who I am. I've always been confident in who I am, no matter the situation. And I like to attribute that to a lot of things, mostly my parents, my mom and my dad, but mainly my brother, my older brother, who, when we were younger, my dad was in the Navy, so since I was 2 years old, I've moved every 2 to 3 years up until I was about 25, because I was in the Navy. So one thing that I've always had to depend on, that I had a crutch, was my older brother, no matter where we went. I have a few friends now from different locations who I reconnected with recently, and most of them said the same things, that when I first moved to a situation, whether it was California or Virginia, everyone thought I was a mute because I just wouldn't talk. I'd be right here on my brother the whole time. Whatever he said, wherever he did, I would just follow because I wasn't comfortable with being myself. It takes me a long time to open up. It takes me a long time to show people who my true self is, because it's always those factors that I feel like are in everyone's head. What if the way I think is wrong? What if they don't like me for whatever reason? What if I don't know what I'm talking about, and as I open my mouth, people realize that? Now, as I'm older, I realize it doesn't really matter. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about, and they still talk. So you can talk too. And that's just something that I've always hold near and dear to my heart, is just being able to be confident in myself, being confident in who I am. And that confidence is something that I've tried to carry on with me in every avenue that I've taken. Like I said, whether it was at Sam Houston, whether it was at Lone Star, whether it was at South Texas College of Law, or whether it was at LSU, just being confident in who I am and owning up and having that accountability if you make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. No one likes to make mistakes, but if you make a mistake, just own up to it. I messed up. Now, I've come to realize after last week, I took the ethics test that there's some mistakes I can't make, but it's still, you need to be accountable if you do make a mistake. And that's something I feel has helped me as I've transitioned, is accountability, knowing when you make a mistake and fessing up to it, and also acknowledging if you don't know something. You don't have to know everything. I'm okay with not knowing everything. A lot of people aren't, and I feel like that's helped me with my transition as well, is I know what I don't know. I knew that I probably needed help when I transitioned. I didn't take the right route initially, but I knew what I needed to do. Now, if I had a do-over, I'd probably, as soon as I transitioned, got out the Navy, I would go speak to someone immediately. So, now I'll go back to my schedule. Why I'm here, it's block 3. All right, why I'm here today. So I'm here today, as I've been talking about, is my transition and what's propelled me here. I've had a few mentors over my time, but the hardest one for me was my first mentor that I had outside of my family. I left home at 17 when I graduated high school and went to college. And the first mentor I had was Michael Mott, he was a player on the Stephen F. Austin football team when I first went there and I played. And he was a friend of mine. He took me under his wing. As I said previously, whenever we would go to a different place when I was younger, I would just be under the wing and the tutelage of my brother. But when I went to college, he was already at SMU, so I didn't have that. So I just had to be me, and I didn't know how to do that at that time. And Michael Mott took me under his wing. He showed me the ropes, not only for college, Division I college football, but also just being a person outside the home. And one of the hardest times for me, one of the toughest days for me, was when I got a call when I was overseas on June 27th, 2009, finding out that he was killed. And that hurt. That was something that was extremely tough for me. That was something that I'd never discussed with anybody prior to today. And that's something that I felt strongly about talking about today. Because to me, going back to accountability and knowing where you are and knowing who you are, that was one of the big moments in my life that kind of propelled me to who I am today. Knowing that it was someone who I knew personally, who took me under his wing as a 17-year-old who didn't know anything, to help guide me through school, who helped me realize what my dream was to continue helping people, to continue to be a lawyer and be the best man, brother, husband, father I can be, and he was taken away. So I felt angry at that time. I was very angry at that time. And that was something I didn't know how to discuss. That's not something I didn't know how to reach out to other people, because at that time, nobody knew. Nobody I was around knew what happened to me. So I had a friend, he's really a boss, but a friend at the time, Timothy Goatsinger, who was my MA1 at the time, who told me that I'm acting different. I'm more agitated. For about a week, 2 weeks, he didn't say anything, but when he realized it, he took me to the side and talked to me, told me I needed to speak with someone, told me I had to do something with that anger, because you can't be armed with that type of anger. You can't be out in the public with whether it's a long-range weapon or with a 9 on your hip, and then with all this pent-up anger and aggression. So that was the first time I actually talked to someone, but it was surface level. And I thought that was okay, just to hit the surface. But what we realize as you talk more and more is there's always something else that's underneath. It's like an iceberg, what my wife tells me. It's an iceberg. The tip is never what it actually is. It's all that stuff underneath. About 85% of the things are under the water that you need to address that we don't think of. So that was something that brought that out of me and allowed me to realize where that anger was coming from, where that rage was coming from in that moment. It wasn't just that. It was more things. But again, that was one of the things that helped me to become who I am today and what brought me to this place right now. So I use all that to say that trust the people around you. Trust yourself. Trust that the people that you have, that the people you surrounded yourself with are good people, that you have good decision-making skills, that you know who you should be around and who you shouldn't be around. Once I realized that I can trust the people around me, whether it was my wife or my best friend, Espy, Dan, Curry, Jeff, trusting that when you surround yourself with good people who want the best for you, that can help you transition. You can help each other to raise up to who you want to be. And that's what I've taken with me throughout this time over the last now 13 years since being out the Navy. And for me, it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. There's still several other shipmates who I still talk to on a regular basis. People who've been in the trenches with me, people who've had to do things with me, and that we still talk. Now, I think a lot of people think when veterans get around, all they do is talk about what they did years ago or things they might have done or what we would have done. And that's a little small piece of it, but the real thing is just letting loose and being who you are. I know if I joke about my weight, Espy's gonna get on me every time. I know if I talk about how I went bald at 25, Dan with his luxurious hair is gonna talk about me. It's something that we kind of it's just feeling comfortable in your own skin and comfortable being around people who, while none of us were stationed together, we went through similar things and we can talk about it together and feel comfortable. I feel like there's a misconception about veterans, about what we want, what we need, and what we're looking for. And I feel like given platforms like this, where you're able to hear from veterans, not just myself, but everyone else who speaks and everyone that you can meet here, regardless of age, regardless of the branch they serve, except the Air Force, no one cares about them. Regardless of where you were stationed, whether you were in Germany or you coasted Japan or Okinawa or in Guam, we all had similar experiences that we can talk about, that if you listen to veterans and actually listen and hear what we need, you can help. It doesn't have to be some grandiose gesture. You can give to the Wounded Warrior Project, or you can do like the VA as they opened up like the MET and the M2 VA, where they realized that there were transitions that we need, things that we needed. When I first got out of the military, I had no idea what to do. I didn't know how to access my benefits. I didn't know about the GI Bill. The first day of boot camp, they have you sign this stuff, and that's it. They don't tell you anything else about your benefits and what you can get, your disability. No one knows anything about that. And when you're in, no one wants to go to sick bay. No one wants to go to sick call. There were several times where I probably should have went to the hospital or got checked up, and I didn't because you're a veteran. What are you doing? Lynce, you're 6'2", 250. You don't need to, you hit your head. Calm down. You're all right. You don't need to go over there. You're carrying a weapon. We need you ready today. Go ahead. You don't need to go. And there were people I remember, not saying any names, but people I remember who every day would argue with our MA1s, with our chiefs, with our LTs, telling them, no, I don't feel right. My head isn't right. My knee hurts. My back hurts. My shoulder hurts. I can't carry this for these miles. I can't go on a 3-mile run today. I can't. And I remember at that time, I was like, that's weak. You can do it. We do it every day. You can do it. Push through. Do it for the next person next to you. Do it for me. Do it for your country. And then when you get out, all that stuff that you didn't get checked out on, that back, that knee, that foot, that broken hand that prevents you from making the fist, that's never going to heal correctly, that broken foot that prevents you from standing from long periods of time, that back that you need surgery on at 26 years old because you can no longer play with your kids, because you can't hold your kids anymore. You can't toss a ball around with your kids because what you did for the country and what you thought was what you needed to do to push through for that next person. Once you get out, it feels like no one cares about you anymore. No one's looking to help you anymore. You served, and now you're out. We don't need anything else from you. It feels like they use you up and cast you to the side. And it doesn't feel like anyone's listening. No matter what you say, no matter what you don't say. And what I've learned, it's more about what you don't say. That's the biggest things. Because as veterans, we're going to tell you, oh yeah, I'm fine. Like, dude, you just got in a car wreck. You just got hit. Oh, I'm fine. You just had a blast. You just ran past an IED that exploded. Oh, I'm fine. Because that's what we're trained. Say I'm fine and keep pushing. Whether you're a Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, we're all taught to just push through, make it to the next day. Do it for the person next to you. But when you get out, you exit by yourself. There's no one next to you. There's no one now telling you that, hey, get up. You got PT. Put on those little shorts and go run. Put on your gear. No one's telling you that anymore. That pain that you have, that stabbing pain that before you pushed to the side because you had a job to do. You had people dependent on you. You had a country dependent on you. That pain is still there when you exit. That pain is still there when you're 36 years old. That head injury, that's still there. That ringing in your ear is still there. The noises that you hear are still there. When you have to go to bed at night with white noise machines because you can no longer concentrate, and you're in your early 30s, that's still there. And at the time, when you're dealing with all that, it feels like no one's listening. But then you find people who will listen. You find people who will help you, like your ESPYs, like your Currys, like your Dans. And you hold them close and you hold them dear because they help you transition. They help you remember that you're not alone. They help you remember that some things that you might not feel comfortable talking about with your family, with your wife, with your kids, with your parents, you can talk about with them because they know the same things. They've been through the same things. And then they help you as you work together to lift yourself up, to do more, to accomplish the things that you wanted to do before, to go on to get your master's. and think about joining the world's greatest Navy. To go on to law school when you thought you were too old, when you thought you were too old to get your MBA, all these young kids are gonna run past you, and then you get there and you realize your life experiences are just as good as their education. They may have all the education in the world, but you have that experience. And that experience is what you're gonna need when you get out into the real world. How you can look at a law, how you can look at a statute, how you can read the tax code and realize what this actually goes towards. The practical from the theoretical. And you find your place and you realize what you want to do with life, and you realize that the goals that you set out when you were 10 years old, watching your mom watch Judge Judy and decide, I want to do that. I want to be a judge. I want to yell at people and tell them they're wrong and to shut up and get paid for it. You know, it's those little things that connect over time. Things you may have thought you forgot, things that are propelling you to be who you are all things through your life that help you transition. Things you learn from adolescence, things you learned as a teenager, things you learned as a young adult, and the things we learned in the military. We can use all of that to become who we want to be. So what I want to leave you with today, because I heard Dan and James tell you, don't get up and use the bathroom, so I'm preventing y'all from using that. What I want to leave with you today is my story. It's not really unique. As I've taught throughout this entire time, I've seen head nodding. People who've gone through similar things, felt similar ways. Now, it might not be exactly what I went through, but it's something that we all can attest to and we can talk about. So what I would implore from all of you who aren't veterans, who don't know a veteran, who don't have family members who are veterans, just reach out and talk to a veteran. Unlike me, there are people who like to talk about themselves. There are people who, if you ask them, what did you do in the Navy? What did you do in the Army? What did you do in the Marines? What did you do in the Air Force? They'll tell you. Because we are proud. I know the Marines have a hold on the few, the proud, but all of us are proud of our service. We're proud of what we've done, and we stand by what we've done. The aches and the pains, the countless VA appointments we have to go to, which I have a couple coming up this week, all the tests I have to go through. I'm proud that I've had experiences that allow me to do that. Because while on Veterans Day, it's about us that are still here, there's another day for veterans, Memorial Day, for those who didn't come home with us, for those who can no longer tell their stories, who can talk about the deployments they went on, the IA tours they went on and came back from. They don't have these aches and pains because they're no longer with us. But there's another 365 days that you can talk to a veteran and just listen to them. It doesn't have to be a forum like this. It doesn't have to be a particular platform. Just open up and listen to us. We'll tell you what we need, and you can hear what we don't. Thank you.
So my name is Lavella Maxey. I was already introduced. I did the Pledge of Allegiance. However, I am also going to go ahead and present what we call our Fallen Warriors table. So if you can all remain silent, make sure your phones are also on silent as well, as this is a moment for us to all respect and give memory to those who have fallen and our POWs as well. Table of the Fallen Soldier is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join together to pay our humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. This table set for one, is small, symbolizing the virility of one prisoner alone against their suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single red rose in the vase signifies the blood that many have shed and sacrificed to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep the faith while waiting for their return. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us today. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to the open arms of a grateful nation. At this time, we would like to take a moment to remember our fallen. Thank you all. Once again, thank you all for joining us.